All right, hi class. Got an email this afternoon from Carissa. She wanted to know how to do that CV edit thing again. So that made me realize it might be good to put together a quick little video that shows you or recaps all the different ways we looked at editing surfaces so far, at least the ones I can remember. And then I'll also talk about also curves, the different kinds of curves that are there in Alias as well. So got my basic sphere here to start off with. So I'm going to go in and make it active. Okay, pick it. And over here in the control panel, right down there, is the ability to turn on the CVs and hulls. Remember, the CVs are the little points sitting out here in space. They're kind of how they control the surface. It's like the fine-tuning aspects. And then the hull lines are simply the little lines that connect them. So when you start interacting with them, is you go back and say pick nothing, and then right there off to the right, you do pick CV. You can pick them individually like that, and then you use the basic transformation tools. So I'll do the shift and control middle mouse button, move, and I can pull those up and start reshaping the form that way. Okay, so that's definitely one way to do it with it. Now, a lot of times when you're working with a shape like this, kind of grabbing whole sets of them and moving them around is kind of a little bit more effective. So let me show you that technique. So I'm going to get more of a side view of this. I'm going to select this whole group right there. So once again, shift to control, pick CV, left mouse button, pick CV. I've selected all the ones at the top, and I'm going to go and shift to control, middle mouse button, move. And now what I'm going to do is use my right mouse button, click and drag. That constrains it to the vertical direction here, or the Z direction I should say, in the perspective window. So I can pull that up and edit that way. Now let's say I wanted also to kind of start expanding, let's say this next set right here, the set of CVs. So I can still pick this pretty easily by once again going in and doing a little bounding box. But I need to go back to the shift and control left mouse button, pick nothing, pick CV, and do a little bounding box across like that. But what I really like to do is just expand these out. The problem is when I try to do that, and I can use the scale tool to do it. So shift and control middle mouse button, and I'll do a proportional scale. When I click, notice how it goes up as well, because the pivot point, it's hard to see it, but it's way down there. It's actually at the center of the object, or what was the center of the sphere. Really would like it just to go outwards, not upwards like that. Let me undo this. So one of the very convenient tools, if you go back to the shift control middle mouse button, is the center pivot. So anything that's active, it takes the pivot point, puts it right in the middle. So voila, snaps it right up there. It's right in the middle. So now when I go back and do that scaling, click and drag, notice how it goes outwards from there instead of going upwards, because the pivot point is basically where the scaling happens about. Alright, so that's a real convenient tool to work with. Now, let's say I wanted to get back in, and this is one challenge with working with CVs, is sometimes as you start picking and moving around, they just overlap each other. It's really hard to get back in and reselect some things. But let's say I want to just kind of flatten this out a little bit. And let's say it was really kind of hard just to pick this outer CVs. So underneath the pick menu, I don't think it is anywhere in any of these, not that I see right there. There is one other way to pick CVs. If you go and right there click where it says pick CVs, there's a little submenu, and there is pick hull lines. Hull lines are those brown lines that connect CVs, and if you click on one, it goes around and selects all the CVs like that. Okay, so it's picked all the ones right there. Real convenient tool when you're trying to get a row of CVs like that. Alright, now let's take and scale this out. Once again, shift and control, middle mouse button, center pivot, so it snaps it down there, and then go back and do a scale, and now I can push that out and kind of sculpt it there a little further. Okay, so that's how you kind of do some basic manipulation with CVs. Now, one thing about working in component mode like this, work with CVs and all. Just keep in mind, if you click on any one of them while you're in a particular tool, now let me do this a different way. Let me go in and pick by CVs. Okay, excuse me. Got that row. Alright, I'm going to do a scale. And I come over here and I click on this one because I want to drag it. Notice how it deselects everything else and only picks that one. Okay, so just be aware when you're working in any of the tools, it's a convenient shortcut, but it can be a hassle if you're used to clicking on things and doing things that way. Okay, alright, so that's working with CVs. Let me go in and change now to working with the object editor. Turn that off. Okay, just like that. Do Alt L to look at this. So I got my plane here, and one of the things I showed you when you're inputting geometry or you want to go back and select it, you can go in and basically define more isoperms, internal lines, so you have more geometry to work with. So I've selected this. Now you have to have a single object selected. So over here it says pick surface and the number of spans. Okay, so if I click on that, I can type in my own value, but I'll go down and just pick 9 off of the top there. 9 going this way. So this is U direction and V direction. On a surface, there's an origin, and there's a little symbol indicating that's the U direction and that's the V direction. Okay, local coordinate system for this. Remember, with this tool, you change it and then you got to hit accept. Okay, so now we got a surface that's got a lot more isoperm, a lot more information. That's a good tool or a good situation to use the object editor. Okay, so right here in the middle, let me just do it this way, object editor. What this basically does is you click on a surface, you can define around that point how many CVs that are based on the U plus and minus and V plus and minus direction. So if I click this, it starts subtracting from this. And if I click this way, I start subtracting that way. Now what this tool does is it grabs those CVs and pulls them up. Let me turn the CVs on so you can see it. So you can see it's pulling up this first one, but also these other ones around it and kind of manipulating the form. Okay, so this is kind of just a tool that gives you ability to kind of sculpt the surface by grabbing a point and then pulling it up, rotating it, doing some modification this way. So it's really kind of a neat tool. If I click right there, you can see it created a form that is almost indeterminate. Can't build something like that. So let's rotate it back up a little bit, get it out of that mode. There we go. Now you can move this around. It's hard to see, but right there is a little triangle. When you click on that, you can position it somewhere else and continue to modify. Okay, and you can go in with it as well. So if you wanted to create kind of a moon landscape or something like that, you can definitely do it with this tool. Alright, so that's another one you can work with. Let me switch out now to the Lattice Rig Tool. Okay, L again. So I got my sphere here that I've kind of flattened out, and I'm going to pick it, and I'm going to go over here to Object Edit, Dynamic Shape Modeling, Lattice Rig. Alright, what this does is it builds a cage around it, and you interact with the cage then to manipulate it. But you got to kind of define more cross sections or spans on the cage that you can work with. So after activating it, you go to split, and then you just start clicking on the edges where you want to add in splits. Accept split, put one here in the middle, accept it, and one down below as well. Okay, and then you go in and you say you're finished, done, and then you hit engage. Now this rig is active. So if I'm going in and selecting these points on here, notice if I do a little box, I select them, my default mode is to translate, and so I pull the rig and you can see what's going to happen. It's going to sculpt the surface for me. Okay, so movement is one way. You can move it X, Y, and Z, and you can move it outwards, I believe. No, that's still moving it one way or another. Okay, the scale tool does have the ability, once again, it's based off the pivot point. So you can scale this in and out, okay, up and down as well. But there's also a third or fourth axis there, this yellow one, that is relative to the pivot point. So if you want to kind of scale outwards from that, you can definitely do that. Okay. Um, like the CVs, this also has the pivot tool, center pivot. So once again, it's moved it up to there. So now, if I want to scale in this plane, you can definitely do that and kind of sculpt the form that way as well. Okay. Um, Once you say pick nothing, pick object, it goes away. To reactivate this tool, you go up here and click on the little H. That brings up the history view, and you just click on it. Make sure when you do this that you don't have the tool still active. It doesn't kind of restart if it's active. Okay, like that, it's still active. So if I click on that, see, it doesn't do anything at that point. What I have to do is say pick nothing, pick object, and then it'll bring it back up. Okay, now if it gets like this real quickly, what that's mean is some of these CVs that were on this form, okay, and once again, when I'm doing this, there's all my CVs, okay, or activate this, it's gotten outside of the cage, so it's becoming indeterminate, can't kind of figure out what quite to do. So what I need to do before I can kind of continue sculpting on this form is to go in and grab those points and just move them out. Notice I'm moving them, pick nothing clear, um, and not engaging yet. So I'm reshaping the cage so that it will basically be all outside. And you can see as I move some out, it starts indicating that it's clear on that. Let's see, there's the other problems right there. So let's do clear. Do a big box like this. I'll do scale in this case and try to pull it out that way. And pretty quickly you can see you can get back to a cage that is all outside of the CVs, and then you can continue to sculpt it. Okay, so that's kind of the third method that you can do things with.